everybody. I'm Amy,
And I'm Paul.
and welcome to the Comics Hall. It's another new comic book Wednesday today on October 14th, Wednesday, October 14th. So we are coming to you live at 4 p.m. Pacific to bring you all of the latest news and updates and pull list worthy items of this week. Now, we do have a moderator in the chat. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jasmine, and I'm moderating today. We are live on Instagram, Periscope, Twitch, Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group, and our normal Facebook group, and YouTube. We're live everywhere. How exciting! Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you for joining us, Jasmine. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you can shout them out at her. She will be keeping an eye on the chats and then letting us know if you guys have questions so we can address those during the show. But without further ado, we've got a lot of comic book news to cover this week.
We really do. All right, everyone, clear out your shelves and you're going to need new tabs because there's a new publisher in town. A new independent comics publisher called Story Worlds has been announced with a formal launch set for 2021, and it's founded by former BBC employee Max Gadney. Story Worlds intends to reach new audiences and bring new creative voices to the comics medium through a bit of an unusual format, and it's going to be graphic novellas. The publisher seeks to feature self-contained books. Books that run about 50 to 60 pages, foregoing the monthly format to hopefully break the battle for readers' attention. I do love that format. I've got to admit a little bit. Story Worlds will launch in February 2021 with 4 titles: a supernatural thriller called United States of Magic. We've got a cowboy samurai crossover that I'm personally very excited for, called The Sword and the Six Shooter, the tense tech thriller Only Hope, and F-A-B, a cyberpunk action story. So that should be all very, very exciting. I know I'm personally excited for, I love samurais and cowboys. So let's get right to February. But now it's for a something that you guys may have all seen over the weekend. We did get a new Invincible trailer last week. The Amazon Prime Video team revealed the first look at the trailer for Invincible, which is an animated series based on Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley's super popular and a smash hit comic. The adult animated show revolves around a 17-year-old named Mark Grayson, whose father is the most powerful man on the planet, Omni-Man. When Mark develops his own powers, he discovers his father's legacy. It isn't as heroic as it seems. Invincible, though, will debut on the Prime Video streaming service in 2021. The cast is pretty stacked. It's got J.K. Simmons, Stephen Yeun, Sandra Oh, Seth Rogen, Mark Hamill, and a lot more. Honestly, go look up that cast. It's ridiculous how many people they've pulled together for that.
Truly, truly. Now, taking a look over to the Marvel event side of things, I know previously we covered on Pulling Ahead the King in Black event. Marvel has continued this week to announce new tie-ins to the King in Black event. Individual titles that will spin out directly from the story by Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman. These books will be heralded by a slew of different creative teams, and the announcements included the return of the Thunderbolts team, which Marvel fans may recognize as the superhero team comprised of reformed villains, and there are some new villains on the team based on what's happened in recent comic events. There is a Black Knight title. Black Knight is someone to look forward to ahead of the Eternals film. There is a Gwenom versus Carnage, returning the Venomized Spider-Gwen versus Carnage, and then Return of the Valkyries, about the Asgardian warrior women who were all killed in War of the Realms, whose legacy was taken up by the former Thor, Jane Foster. These newly revealed titles, as well as others in the continuing King in Black event, these ones will all be slated to debut in January. Now, if you're not on the social media sphere of comics, you may have missed this one yesterday. On Tuesday, October 13th, the Vault Comics Twitter was taken over by a fictional character named Henry, who was the disgruntled lead of the upcoming series, A Dark Interlude, about a realm of manifested fear entities escaping in order to benevolently free humanity from endless sequel culture. Henry was actually first introduced in the 2018 series Fearscape, and this fun viral Twitter stunt involved the entity himself blocking the series writer Ryan O'Sullivan on the social media app before editing the Vault Comics account biography, insulting the publisher and other creatives involved with the series, and advertising for A Dark Interlude in a very meta-textual fashion. The Vault Comics account has since returned to normal posting, but you can see the results of Henry's escapades on their profile at The Vault Comics on Twitter.
I'm glad they got everything sorted. I was real worried about them.
He was quite rude to the people working on the book and the editorial side of Vault Comics, but they seem to have gotten him back under wraps, and we won't see him again until the book debuts, I believe, later this year in November or December.
Yeah, you
So.
never want to block the hand that feeds you. I mean, Henry. But what are you gonna do? But before we do move on to our panel of the week segment, literally right before the show started, we had a bit of I guess you could call it breaking news. But as of, I believe, 3:30, you can now subscribe for DC Universe Infinite, which is their, I guess, just their comics only streaming app, which was, at first DC Universe, which had, shows like Titans, Swamp Thing, the Harley Quinn animated show. They have now completely moved all of their video content over to HBO Max, and DC Universe Infinite is the home for just their comics at launch. So, which is available, well, you can subscribe to it now, and I believe it launches in January. There's going to be 27,000 titles readily available for you to read. So you can actually go get your free 7-day trial, of course, when that starts in January. You can do it now as of 30 minutes ago. So go do that. Amy, I need you to just kind of take over for the next 30 minutes. I've got to enter all my information again.
All
And
right.
so
That is fresh. That is hot off the presses comics
yes,
news.
it is.
But we do have our panel of the week segment coming up next. For those of you who may be listening to our podcast format, thank you for joining us. The podcast format will publish on Thursdays, so you can see all of the visual assets that are referenced in this show on sideshow.com/geek on the official blog. That's where we'll host all of the extra material that you may not be able to visually see in the podcast. But otherwise, if you are joining us live on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, thank you guys, because now you have the breaking news of DC Universe Infinite. So, Paul, do you want to explain our concept, or you picked the theme this week?
I did. The inspiration just hit me. But the theme of our panel of the week for this week was rocket ships, or spaceships, if you will. They're not interchangeable, I'd say. I'm sure there's someone out there who is very passionate about rocket ships who would argue, but rocket ships mainly was our theme. Amy, please show us what your panel was. I loved your panel so much.
This was difficult, and Paul and I both went back and forth, but a number of famous ships came to mind. But of course, I had to pick the Sundog from Invisible Kingdom #1 by G. Willow Wilson and Christian Ward. Christian Ward both on inks and colors. We actually did preview this exact image on our Eisner's show as an example of Christian Ward's artwork when we were specifically speaking about Invisible Kingdom, which is now an Eisner award-winning series, by the way.
Sure is.
But yeah, I just thought it was a fun look at the little spaceship in the midst of a giant galaxy where everything is still equally beautiful. But if you're reading the story, the Sundog is falling apart and the crew inside is really the most important part that is holding the whole ship together.
Yes,
Now,
and
Paul,
so now,
Paul, what did you pick?
for
Very
mine,
different.
I think normally we try to be pretty ominous. We try to be pretty discreet with who chose what panel, because if it was based off favorites, it would be Amy. Amy would win every single time. But I think once they saw it was a Green Lantern panel, they might have had an idea that it was to be. Oh, sorry, they can't see me at the minute, but I'm holding up my Green Lantern shirt. I chose the X300 teleport plane from Grant Morrison's current run of Green Lantern. This is specifically from Green Lantern Season 2, #3. And you've got a really beautiful ship with some wonderful weirdly chromatic colors there, and it's the fastest plane in that universe at the moment, and he's trying to explain to Hal Jordan, just be careful, I don't know if you know what you're doing here, but it's Hal Jordan. So I really love this panel. I love the way that Liam Sharp is on the pencils and the colors for this as well. We both chose panels this week that the artists drew it and colored it themselves, I believe.
And the colors are huge in these images. I mean, I really like the way that yours looks like almost a burned tailpipe, and your ship itself is so much more beautiful than the one in my panel. I used the galaxy surrounding the ship to kind of emphasize the beauty of the shape of it. But do we want to? I mean, you guys voted for us, so this was. Paul and I put it to your hands. Those of you in the Let Your Geek Sideshow group voted for us, and the winner was
drum roll. The
Sun
Sun
Dog.
Dog. Yes, congratulations, Amy. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
not
thank
moving
you.
the broom to sweep all the confetti up. I
I'm
told you
still,
last week you just let me win for my birthday. That's all
I'm
it
still
was.
behind you though, because you did pull ahead. We tied for a little while there, but thank you guys for voting. We're looking to expand the options for voting outside of the Let Your Geek Side
Mhm.
Show Facebook group, so please do stay tuned to our social media at the Comics Hall on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, as we are looking to bring more ways for you guys to lend your voices to helping us decide the panel of the week winners.
Definitely.
But we really appreciate everybody who weighed in this week for the Let Your Geek Side Show group. Lots of great insights and commentary also about who picked what and why. So thank you.
Yes, thank you guys all so
Now I
much.
think
And
it is time for us to load up those rocket ships and jet into our weekly haul. This was a big week.
nice.
Nice segue. Thank you. This is a big week. This is the portion of the show in which we cover the pull list for the week. If you're unfamiliar with the term pull list, it is basically your subscription at your local comic book store. Paul and I are infamous for having quite large subscriptions, and that is why we bring you the content that is we're keeping an eye on what's new, what's continuing, what you want to be looking at this week across the shelves.
Yeah, chances are one of us is reading something that'll interest you. We historically speaking, I'd say Amy kind of gears more towards Marvel, and me towards DC, and we meet in the middle with some of the indie books there.
Yes,
But the lines
indeed.
have started to get a little skewed more. I'm starting to read a little more Marvel. Amy's definitely turned me on to more Marvel lately.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And there's a couple of DC titles. I don't read many, but the ones that I do, I love very fiercely.
Oh, they're
So
fantastic.
we do have our patented AIM system that is in which we review the book for you. We give you the aim of the title because numbers is subjective, and if we say that we didn't like it, if it was a 3 to me, I don't want that to discourage you from reading if it wasn't my cup of tea. So we have this acronym AIM to explain how we evaluate each of the books. And A is for accessibility. How easy is this book to pick up and read? But also, how easy is it to obtain? Can you get it digitally? Is it super limited? What is the how do you get this book
Mhm.
in your hands, and how do you understand the story? I is for interest, and so we would like to talk about who would like this book. What other similar titles are you reading that would inspire you to pick up this book? Is it the writer? Is it the artist? Is it something special about this book? And then the M is money or monetary investment, and that is how much you're spending, but also how many pages you're getting. Are you paying extra for more pages? Are you paying for a fancier cover? What are you paying for, and what are you getting out of this transaction when you pick up this comic book?
Right. Yeah. The M is gonna have its rightful due this week. I think Amy's got a real doozy of the M and AIM this week. So, but a little more on that later.
Yes.
All right, so let's get right into it. So the first book that I was really really excited to talk about, but so I was like, I knew I had to aim this book is Rorschach #1 by DC Comics, and specifically their off-print black label. So this is written by Tom King, art by George Fornones, and colors by Dave Stewart, and letters by Clayton Cowles. Clayton Cowles, I don't know how he gets anything done. It seems like every single, I'm glad we could put him on Busy Bee of the Week every single week, Amy, because he does so much, as do so many of the letterers out there who are the unsung heroes, really, of comics. But this is a wonderful book. So let's get right into the accessibility. First off, this is a pretty huge release. This is a book that I think a lot of people have been, either excited for or definitely very curious. So as far as accessibility goes, you should be able to find this book and its variants pretty easily at your local comic shop. I think a lot of them are absolutely wonderful. But I mean, to be honest, Fornes did a great job with this cover. I'd say I love the thumbprint. I think a lot of people do. And so, as far as how easy you can pick this up, it is pretty accessible, I'd say, as far as a #1. Granted, it's really, really hard, I'd say, for people to find for lack of a better word, like we like to say, a true #1 in one of the big two in Marvel or DC. This is pretty close because Rorschach is a character that people are very, very familiar with, but I don't think they associate Rorschach really by himself. Your brain immediately goes to Watchmen. So if you don't know that much about Watchmen or the Watchmen lore, that's actually not that bad. there are parts do play into this where, they definitely talk about Ozymandias and, kind of how the original comic did leave off, and it sort of plays. And I think this is something like 60 years after that. So it's not imperative that you have read Watchmen, but it definitely will help you to sort of understand this character and some of the complexities that Tom King is writing in here. Now, again, going right into the interest of this book, I'll be honest, like I've read Watchmen, I've watched the movie, I've watched the HBO show, but as far as like properties, I think that are out there, like I don't consider myself like a huge Watchmen fan, but I do gravitate towards particular characters because I find them radically different than a lot of characters that we find out in comic books, especially now with the Watchmen verse, if you will, sort of being folded into DC Comics continuity. I think it's really interesting to see some of these characters from Watchmen replace other DC characters. So it's really interesting. But I think the creative team of this book and the name of Rorschach is enough to really get you to read it. Honestly, it's so good, and it's definitely like a political intrigue, almost like a spy thriller that sort of, it almost feels like Memento, kind of the Christopher Nolan film, where it shows you the end of the book and it works backwards in a way. So it's sort of, how did they get to that point? And it's really interesting. I think Tom King's dialogue here is pretty great. It's pretty fantastic. I'm also reading Strange Adventures right now, and you can definitely see that he puts the Strange Adventures hat down and puts the Rorschach hat on. I think that's really important when writers are writing multiple books at the same time, to see if you can differentiate the voice that they're trying to tell.
So it's the Adam Strange helmet, and then he takes that off and puts on the Rorschach fedora.
It sure does. Or the mask, or the fedora is probably more accessible, since I know Tom King does use our AIM system. I think it's really interesting. The first issue of Rorschach really does ask a lot of questions, and it does show that this character does have a lot of breadth and a lot of life still within it, because I don't know if a lot of folks really know Rorschach outside of what has happened in Watchmen, but he has had a lot of stories since. There was the Before Watchmen sort of prelude that had happened way back when. This definitely feels like a nice fresh take and kind of bringing him to the forefront. It's a great book. I really think you should read it based off the name, the art, and the creative team alone. It's fantastic. And I thought it was a maxi series. I thought it was 12, but it's only 6 issues.
Oh,
So,
okay.
which I thought was really interesting. Tom King really loves the 12 issue maxi, but so as far as we know, it's only 6 issues. Again, I could be wrong, but from all the research that I did do on this, and from like my pull list and the solicitations, pretty sure it's just 6 issues. Let's see.
All right, we do actually have a question about accessibility regarding the character, and if you've only seen the Watchmen movie.
Oh, okay. So they want to know if they. Oh, yeah. So yeah, if you've only seen the Watchmen movie, that's the only thing you've seen, you're totally fine to just pick this up and read. Because one, it'll explain where Rorschach was left at the end of that movie. It sort of does play into the TV show a little bit, because they do talk about Oklahoma and everything that happened there within the show. If you haven't seen it, I'm definitely not going to spoil it, because that show is wonderful and you should watch it. But it does touch on that a little bit, Mr. Guy Klender. So definitely you can watch that movie twice, watch the show, and then read the book in no particular order. It's all fantastic, but you can definitely just watch the movie and then read Tom King's Rorschach and like have no problem. Then as far as the M and AIM, the monetary investment, it's $4.99, and it's a 6-issue miniseries, and this is 32 pages. So it's a little bit, I think, as we were talking earlier, Amy, it's a little bit oversized for normal, but it is $4.99. So you're getting your money's worth there.
Excellent. So next on my list, I think this week is really fun. We've got a lot of kind of not lampooning of superheroes, but the off-kilter superhero universes. I'd like to take us over to Villainous #1 from Mad Cave Studios, previously reviewed on the Comics Hall. We checked out their Stargazer title. Now this is an entirely new debut from Mad Cave by writer Stoney Williams, with art by Jefferson Sedzinski, colors by Joanna LaFuente, and lettering by Justin Birch. Villainous is a fun and very peppy opening issue. You guys are seeing the cover currently with our protagonist, Reptili. Her name is Matilda, but she does exhibit reptilian anatomy and powers. So I'll start with the A for AIM. This is a brand new #1 from Mad Cave Studios. And like Paul was saying, #1s are a bit of a different beast in the big two when they're using licensed characters that people have reference for in other films and media. However, with a company like Mad Cave, this is an independent publisher. So all of their #1s have to essentially be accessible without any prior backstory, because these are an entirely new set of characters and rules and conventions that you have to understand. It is very easily accessible in terms of establishing its plot and its world, and it utilizes the conventions of superhero world building, but you quickly learn that the status quo is going to change. Now, for if you're a fan of series like The Boys, My Hero Academia, or even Alan Moore's Top 10, then you are 100% in the right place. This is a world where powered people are not always 100% as utopian as you might hope. It's got the My Hero Academia vibes of young sidekicks registering to train and study under the heroes, but it's got the boys and the top 10 feel of a coalition of heroes, as it is called in the world, the coalition of heroes, who may not be 100% on the level they are organized, which means that they work for a shady organization or possibly shady organization. But from the young perspective of an outsider who's very excited about this idyllic idea of the superheroes, Reptili is excited to start her internship. It's a very fun setup. Reptili is amazing, and I didn't have time to pull specific panels of her face, but you'll want to read this alone for the Jefferson Sedzinski expressions that he puts on her face. She's adorable. She has at least 5 panels where I was like, oh, I feel that. I very strongly identify with that expression on her face. Very larger than life. Very fun. And in a way, she reminds me of also Kamala Khan in the fangirl aspect of how you react overly to seeing superheroes in that kind of teenage way. And it's also always fun to have a new and imagined roster of superheroes with different powers. In terms of the world of Villainous, the people's powers are pretty standard for what you see. I mean, we, again, do have a reptile. We've got the super strength. We've got someone who's super fast. So that is a kind of traditional superhero slate. We'll see something a little different when we go to our pick of the week, but this was a fun and solid debut from Mad Cave. And for the Am, it is $3.99, standard page count, standard price. There's not a whole lot else I can say without spoiling it, but I think the comparison, especially as The Boys, is really relevant right now. But this is a slightly less, from the first issue, slightly less mature in terms of gore and violence take. So if you're maybe not as keen on the violence in The Boys, you'll want to check out Villainous for sure. Just, it was really fun, and I love, like, Reptili is so cute. It's really weird to say, but she's just so cute.
It's a beautiful cover too. I love like that purple against like I don't want to say harsh green, but like that really bright green of her skin. That's a beautiful cover. I know at their showcase recently, right? Didn't they give away some of the variants to this as well?
Yes, there was a Hannah Templar variant, and you can check that out. Actually, Mad Cave did host their showcase on October 3rd. They did create a series of special showcase limited variants that do have the Mad Cave showcase stamp on them. Those are available on their website, so you can check those out if you're interested in obtaining some rare variants. Do be advised that they are pricier than the $3.99 of the standard book, but that is a fun little collectible if you're really interested in investing in these Mad Cave titles. Yeah, so that's Villainous #1. I really liked it. It was fun.
Yeah, it's a great book, and it was like something that I knew I wanted to pick up, and I was like, that's what I forgot. I knew I wanted to read it, and I didn't pick it up in my LCS, but I will. But for something that I did pick up is 7 Secrets #3, which is the next book that I wanted to aim. I always try to be really thorough with how I aim books that are in like sort of in the middle of an arc, but I generally speaking only do it when it's creator-owned books, because it is easier sometimes, I believe, to catch up and sort of just kind of dive right into this world. So I really, really believe that, specifically with this book. This is written by Tom Taylor. The art is by Danielle Dinuqualo, and colors by Walter Baiamonte. I have a book by Tom Taylor and Tom King. Just so everyone knows, if you are on Twitter, they are different people.
They are very different people.
They are different people. Both incredible writers in their own right. So I really wanted to start this with like the pitch for like how, like why you should read this book. I do absolutely love the way that they had solicited this originally, and it's for centuries the Order has trusted in keepers and holders to guard the secrets in 7 briefcases against all harm. But when their stronghold is attacked and the secrets put in peril, the entire Order must face their greatest fear, an enemy who knows too much and is willing to kill them to get what he wants. We'll just jump right into the aim of it. I love this book so much. Now, as far as the accessibility goes, this has sort of become another really heavy hitter in the Boom Studios lineup, I'd say. I know it had a ridiculous launch. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, but didn't it, like, for a brief time, didn't it like win? I feel like there's always that competition with different creators. It's like between like Al Ewing and Tom Taylor, and I think Al Ewing's got the crown right now with We Only Find Them When They're Dead, but Seven Secrets had a ton of pre-orders when it was originally launched, because it has glowing reviews and sort of previews by like Scott Snyder, by I think Chip Zdarsky. Al Ewing himself had one, and they all had just said like, this is what a comic book should be. And I cannot stress it enough. Like, it is a wonderful book. And
it's gone into multiple printings as well. So I especially recommending this book in the middle of an arc. You are liable to find reprintings of I believe both the first and second issues already. So if you unfortunately missed out, there's still time to catch up. Otherwise, we're close. We're halfway through to a trade, but there should be plenty of printings if there's not a first printing, and there's lots of variants available too. I had this one on my pull. Absolutely love it. But Paul, take it away.
Yeah, I'd actually checked when I went and picked this up today. There is a third print still available. There's a third print out right now of issue number 1 and a second print out of issue number 2. I have to assume that number 3 is going to go into a second print as well. It's fingers crossed. That's good for everyone involved. But so as far as like accessibility, obviously you can't just pick up 3 and just sort of understand. You're going to be dropped right into the middle of everything. However, that would be pretty impressive if someone can just pick up 3 and just get it. They just kind of are writing their own story. I would love to see it. But like we were mentioning, that sort of folds in when we were talking about the different printings to the idea that you should be able to go to your local comic book shop if they are the type of shop that does stock, pretty new books. Not all of them do, but there is, I'd say there is an urgency I would get at to, because this book, Boom Studios specifically, We Only Find Them When They're Dead, they tend to fly. I think, like Once in Future as well was another one that it has like 8 printings, or no, that might be Something's Killing the Children, I believe. But it's just, you're always going to want to try to pick these up as soon as you can, because one, just kind of jump on the bandwagon as soon as you can. And this is one that I cannot stress it enough. So you should be able to find this relatively easily. And then if you pick up issue 1 and 2, you really, really should be able to just jump right in, because this is a brand new story. It's a creator-owned story. You need no backstory in order to be able to understand 1, 2, and 3, other than those 3 issues. So as far as the interest goes, the eye and aim, it's really hard to say like who would love this particular book. There's a lot of influences that you can tell Tom Taylor pulls from, but I sort of narrowed it down. And Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong, or you think I'm completely out of out of left field here. But I felt like the Umbrella Academy in certain aspects of the dynamics of the Order, and also Deadly Class. I got a lot of sort of Deadly Class vibes from the interaction of the students in this Order, as well as as far as the Umbrella Academy, sort of that real ominous cloud that's kind of looming over the story. I really kind of got that in this. But
Absolutely, and actually, may I add 2 other suggestions that
Oh
were what
yes.
were pitched to me? I mean, or one was pitched to me and one I've kind of extrapolated myself.
Hmm.
Primarily, if you are a fan of, like, Shonen Jump manga, like,
Right.
it reads so briskly, and it really does evoke the kind of, uh, young adult action manga style, even though it is traditional Western comics, and this one might be totally out of left field. I get a little bit of Saga vibes, in the
Oh,
sense of it is the child of 2 people who should not have had a child narrating the story, and I
right.
do like, our protagonist is Caspar, the way in which he sees the world because he knows that he's not supposed to be, and we do have those interludes that are like Hazel with Alana and Marco in
Right.
Saga, which, oh my god, maybe this is because I'm just waiting for Saga to come back from hiatus, but to have the child of 2 people in a very like fraught situation that is life or death balance.
Yeah.
And I won't spoil it, but the way that Caspar knows where the story is going and hints at where the story is going before
Hmm.
you've even seen that, it did give me Saga, but it has the high flying action vibes of Shonen Jump
It
magazine.
it really does, and I'm someone that I can count on one finger the amount of mangas that I have read. And this to me feels as much of a manga as I think a traditional, if you will, like Western comic book has gotten with because Dina Qualo has just a way to evoke such energy in all of these panels. Like you can sort of really, really, really understand what is happening in almost every single action sequence, which is an incredible feat. And Biomonte does a great job of sort of knowing where to color and when to color, when to hold back, let the art speak for itself. So I think the art on this is up there with Tom Taylor and what he's doing as far as the lore building, which is it was great that you did bring up Saga because this does have an incredible sort of lore that you're just sort of unraveling page by page because there you can tell. I mean, there's even a page in this, and they kind of talk about how long this order has been, and someone does a particular thing. They're like, someone hasn't done that in 3,000 years. So you have 3,000 years of story like immediately that they just kind of blow over because what's happening immediately is so important. Um, it's fantastic. This is definitely a book that, I mean, I understand, we, me and Amy are also very obviously, cause we're doing the show right now, big comic book fans, in every sense of the word. And we understand that people do trade weight. So, I mean, not, if this is one that you do want to wait on trade for, totally get it. It's going to read like so much fun. But you are going to want to like probably put it on your pool because I feel like this comic really flies. Like
It
it moves
does.
so fast. Like there is this kinetic energy literally from page to page. It feels like it's just never stops. And that is, of course, largely in part to how Tom Taylor paces Seven Secrets, as well as how Dina Qualo really, really kind of draws uh, every single character and their motion or lack thereof.
And to
It's
make the case
beautiful.
for trade waiting, I mean, I do want to comment on the direct market is very interesting, and the single
Mhm.
issue sales do uh, play a big part for the publishers. But what can make or break a book, such as Seven Secrets, which I'm sure will have no problem, but things like
Yeah.
Finger Guns and other smaller titles we've recommended to you previously, um, is the trade sales, is the
Mhm.
collected edition, because actually more people are reading in collected edition, more people outside of the realm of who picks up their books every Wednesday. Trade paperbacks go to the bookstores as well. They go to the libraries. And so it's always important, if you do identify a title that you want the trade for, pre-order. That is what
Mhm.
is going to really help these books um, kind of sing and really stay on the shelves, so that you can wait for more trades instead of saying, oh, people weren't ordering enough of the single issues, they couldn't put out the next volume. And in fact, a lot of the books that I'm reading right now, like Crowded and Invisible Kingdom, are going the way of switching to trade for their final or next arc, because they would rather get the sales from the collected volume than
Mhm.
do the monthly
Totally.
format and then possibly not have as strong of a showing for the final volume.
Yeah,
So I think that's really
it's a totally different way of reading comics, and there's no wrong way of reading comics as long as you're doing it
right.
legally.
Legally,
That's the way.
and yeah, supporting the
Yes,
creative teams. That
exactly.
is the only way to do that. But I do want to Hold on just a sec. Let's transition here to a trade that I want to talk about that if you trade waited for, I've got some great news for you in the mathematical sector. But this week, one of the biggest releases, both physically, literally, and just in my opinion, is the War of the Realms omnibus from Marvel Comics. What we're showing you on the screen currently is the cover of the 6th issue, which is one of the 2 covers that are available for the omnibus with a slightly different trade dress. I was not able to pull the actual image of the trade dress, but it is a bound edition. Written by Jason Aaron, with art by Russell Dodderman, colors by Matt Wilson, and letters by Joe Sabino, the all-star Thor team. But I also want to add that not only did they work on that, but the creative team of several dozen comic books are also included. And it would take me forever. It would take me the entirety of this segment to name all the people credited in this book. This is the entire War of the Realms event in one. So for accessibility, War of the Realms is itself the payoff to 7 years of Jason Aaron's Thor storyline that encapsulates the entire event from its kickoff, and it does this is the entire event. So in terms of accessibility, you don't have to find anything else outside of this event. But like a Marvel event, you don't have to have read all of Jason Aaron's Thor to get into it. Marvel strives to have their crossover events be accessible no matter what title you are reading. However, the sweetest of payoffs is if you've been reading any modicum of Jason Aaron's Thor story. But War of the Realms does a good job of quickly explaining the stakes in the battleground in the primary 6-issue event. And it's entirely centered on the Thor mythos. So if you have at least a vague understanding of the cosmology of the realms, knowing that there's 10 realms, not just 9, this event touches every superhero team, every continent on Earth. And there's a little bit of something for everyone here. However, what this book does not collect is the Road to War of the Realms, which were the prelude titles, and the aftermath books that spun out, like Punisher Kill Crew or Valkyrie. But it does encapsulate the main event, all the tie-ins, and then the Omega epilogue issue. For interest, again, if you read Thor God of Thunder or Mighty Thor, this is required reading. There is no way that you can go, this was great, I loved all of Jason Aaron's stuff up until Jane Foster, or up until that last bit of Jane Foster, but I don't want to see how it ends. That is criminal. I'm sorry. You have to read this. This is required reading. It is I know I'm biased, and so you shouldn't listen to a thing I say, but it is
are you?
True testament to a series getting to run its length, hit its beats without interruption, hit the payoffs that fans have been waiting for, and even do a little bit of setup for stuff that, like, inevitably, I know, like, in my heart of hearts, some things that this event laid down are going to come up in King in Black because of the way that Jason Aaron and Donny Cates began to thread together elements of Thor and Venom regarding the symbiotes and All Black the Necrosword and Null himself. So not saying that you have to read this one in order to understand King in Black, but that is just the beauty of when Marvel stepped back and let Jason Aaron and his creative team do this book. And in terms of general interest, then outside of that, Iron Man describes it best in this book. The story is like Dungeons and Dragons threw up on Manhattan. However, it doesn't just hit Manhattan, it hits, again, as I mentioned, every single continent. It's sword and sorcery. It's a little heavy metal, like think Tarna, and a whole lot of Monster of the Week fun for all the tie-ins. All the tie-ins kind of get a Monster of the Week because as each continent gets taken over by an invading realm, you get to go global with the story. So we have the new Agents of Atlas in Asia as Muspelheim, the Realm of Fire, is marching on their continent. North America gets frozen over by Jotuns. Australia falls to the Trolls. Europe falls to the Dark Elves. South America gets taken over by the Land of the Dead. Africa is taken by the Angels, which are the 10th realm, so you might not recognize them from the Norse cosmology. And Antarctica gets sent to Roxxon for oil drilling. So it really is a global story, and I can guarantee your favorite Marvel character is in it. They don Asgardian armor. People get flying horses. Spider-Man has one of the most poignant interactions with a Pegasus, and that was written by Tom Taylor in the Strike Force Land of the Giants issue that was regarded as one of the best of the whole series. Truly the most global Marvel event that I've ever read, and it's not one of those ones that changes everything as we know going out of the event, but it plays with every kind of toy in the box. And I know we are coming to the end of the AIM segment, but I want to hit you with some fun math for the M for monetary investment. The omnibus that comes out this week is a solid $125, which might sound a little scary on the wallet there, but it collects everything from War of the Realms. That is 63 issues, 1,576 pages of comic books. If you do the math, that is less than $2 per comic issue. It's about 8 cents a page, which is half the price of the series, essentially. If you read every single separate issue like I did, not getting special variants or any covers, just the standard event books, I calculated for you guys the pre-tax cover cost of the event when it originally published in 2019 was $262.38.
Jeez.
That is not counting tax. That is not counting variants. That is not counting extra printings that I may or may not have added to my collection. So if you want to get this event, if you waited at all, this is the real deal. I mean, honestly, and I've read Marvel events since about 2013 now. So I did Civil War II, I did Secret Wars, I did all those kind of little Avengers crises, Secret Empire, all these different things. War of the Realms is the most fun I've ever had because the stakes were high for what they were, but it wrapped up so neatly and didn't spill out too greatly. And again, it is the payoff to 7 years of my favorite comic book series. So there was no way I wasn't going to go all out. So you can now go all out without going all out of your wallet and get the omnibus that came out this week. It is available through traditional booksellers next week, but comic book retail stores have the War of the Realms omnibus this week.
Yes. And time.
There we go. I had to do that math. I had to know.
Yeah.
So that's the true power of the M in AIM.
Yeah, when we say monetary investment, we take it seriously. No, I know we did have a question, but we also wanted to do our rapid fire round. I think, Amy, because I am putting the Oscar music on ourselves, so we can get, because we do have to wrap up relatively soon. I think we should get right into our Hall or the Hall segment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna skip rapid fire and we're gonna skip pick of the week.
Oh, that's right. We have to do pick of the week.
We do have to do pick of the week. Let's do it real. Let's make the pick of the week a rapid fire.
Every time you talk about it, I get so invested in the monetary value of that omnibus because it's crazy. Okay, yeah, let's hop into our pick of the week, which was
Commanders in Crisis #1 from Image Comics.
Yeah, this is a really wonderful book. I think what we maybe are going to try to do with this is sort of aim the book very, I'd say lightly, in ways that we both kind of approach this. Amy, I would really like if you sort of talk about the insert there by Dan DiDio first, because that really sort of sets the tempo and for this particular book.
Yes. So Commanders in Crisis, first of all, real quick, it was written by Steve Orlando with art by Davide Tinto, colors by Francesca Caro Tenuto, and lettering by Fabio Amelia. So this is the first of a 12-issue series, and it was really nice. We had the book opens with it's very patriotic and red, white, and blue kind of graphic design with a foreword by Dan DiDio. So he actually speaks to the testament of the accessibility of the book. And it is a true #1, though extremely ambitious. He speaks to the crossover elements of your favorite big two publishers and how everyone loves to see DC characters from across the multiverse come together to combat a threat. Well, what is harder than getting people interested in a DC crossover event than a crossover event with characters you don't know anything about? Commanders in Crisis is itself a crossover event within a brand new world created by Steve Orlando and Davide Tinto, and just a really cool endeavor in the superhero space. And unlike books that we talked about this week, like War of the Realms or Vilnius, its style of superheroing is anything but conventional. It very much subverts the typical superhero crossover event. And so it was really great for DiDio to kind of speak to the fact that it is ambitious enough to do it with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, but to set out to tell a 12-issue story with characters that no one has heard of and establish a new world. It's really fun, and it's really cool to see how that plays out on the page.
Yeah, and I love how highly he also speaks of Steve Orlando, someone who not only loves superheroes in and of themselves, but knows how to write a good team and a good crossover as well as Steve Orlando has done, on multiple occasions in his career or during his stint at DC. Yeah, and again, like Amy said, this is a true number one, and everything that you're gonna need for this book is in this book originally. I mean, you do. I should say, I love the way that it does just tackle the superhero genre head on, because there are two huge events going on right now in the big two. And, as me and Amy have both worked at comic book shops, and we know comic book people. I'm sorry, a lot of people who read comics, you can really be sort of, you can fall out of love with the idea of like, man, there's always these huge events. But I do love eventually, specifically with this book, how it does speak to that. And that, you can, like, this is, as Amy had mentioned, a really, really ambitious attempt at a crossover event of, in that same vein. It's got that same, it's trying to bring that same energy. And Steve Orlando does a wonderful job sort of laying out these characters and I love what Dan DiDio has said in it, is not only knowing these characters, but caring about these characters. So sort of, I know we both kind of touched on it a little bit, but as far as the interest in this book, if you love superhero books, but you really don't have the time to go lore digging, this is a wonderful book to sort of just pick up and really, really, if this is what you want your superheroes to look like, really invest in these characters, because they are all really well laid out. They've all got very, very different backstories. And I do love, though, that there is that sense of familiarity between, like, some of these heroes. You can tell they're almost like amalgamations or proxies for what some of these other heroes look like, but in the way that they operate, their powers, the way they talk is so radically different. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
and just to give you a little taste, just to pique your interest, one of the characters, whose name is Prizefighter, his power is that he is as strong as the crowd hopes he is. And there's a character called the Originator who speaks new words into existence that physically alter reality. So it is not your typical, we got a strong one, we got a fast one, we got a magic one kind of team. It's very,
Right.
very mind bending. And I think that sets them up perfectly for the challenge that they are facing, which is anything but a typical, oh, we got to fight the villain. They're fighting concepts and ideas themselves. And then for M, this is a $3.99 book, but it is a 12-issue limited series. So as Paul says, if you choose to invest in these characters, you will be investing about that price for every single issue in the series. But you know what to expect when it is collected.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
very unique take on the superhero genre this week, in a week filled with superheroes.
Exactly. It's very I mean, again, I just keep coming back to the word you use, very ambitious, especially since in each of the big two there are two huge events going on, and saying I am going to drop a completely original superhero team sort of crossover right in the middle of all of this. It's something that I think, only Steve Orlando could really accomplish, because he's a very, very ambitious writer, and we love it.
Yes. So now we do want to get to our Holler at the Hall segment, because we did have a myriad of wonderful responses based on our New York show from last week. So this is the Holler at the Hall segment, where we ask you guys a brain scratcher of a question to kind of elicit some fun responses. This is your chance to tell us what you think, and we will read some responses on air. So last week, during our talking tour of Marvel's New York, we asked you who would be the best neighbor if you lived in Marvel's New York. We kind of gave you the overview of the city, who lives where. We wanted to hear what you think about who would make the best neighbor in this colorful superhero capital.
Yes. So we got a lot of really great responses. We really did have to cut some of them down, because some of them are very detailed. And so, starting right off here, we had in the Let Your Geek Said Show Facebook group, OG Bernard said, Cap, of course. So saying Captain America would be the best neighbor, of course. Besides keeping the area safe, he'd be the best neighbor. Noise, he's a quiet, married dude with a family. Curb Appeal, who doesn't love the red, white, and blue house. Social events, every now and then Peggy and Steve will have a throwback dance party. He'd probably help shovel the sidewalks in the winter, and overall be a great neighbor. What's not to love?
Now, I do like Lauren Ashley Zarillo's. more interesting choice for choosing Captain America. She voted Cap because he's so kind. Plus, you get to watch America's ass go down the street. We also asked you guys what you guys thought of who we would pick as neighbors. And so Lauren said, I think Paul is pro Doctor Strange, and I think Amy's a little more Daredevil. I think our answers will shock you, but we will drop
Yes.
those at the end. AJ Agrusa said, honestly, I think Spider-Man would be awesome to live near. I feel like you could geek out with him and have good chats. Plus, getting pizza with him would be great.
I completely get that. Ashley Brienzo said, the best neighbor would be Carol Danvers. We could sing karaoke on Thursday nights. I would flirk and sit Goose/Chewie when she's out saving the universe, and no one would dare steal anything of mine because they would get a sparkle fist to the face. I love flirk and sit is a great word.
I like the specificity of karaoke on Thursday nights. I mean, that is someone you are good friends with this neighbor. Now, the most legendary response we got was Andrew Wershborn's, and we will post the full response on our blog at side.show/geek or sideshow.com/geek. But just to give you a taste, Andrew Wershborn asked us, are the two of you crazy? None would be good. How many times have fights broken out at a hero's home or headquarters? How many times have the Hand ambushed Daredevil in his apartment and killed anyone in their way? How often does Dr. Doom send Doombots at the Baxter building? That being said, Doreen Green's roommate, being Doreen Green, excuse me, that's a hard name to say. Being Doreen Green's roommate/housemate hasn't seemed too dangerous. So I guess Squirrel Girl is my answer. We'll post up the full response on our blog. You guys can check that out in the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group. Otherwise, it is a delightful response and actually a very smart thing to consider that sometimes you wouldn't want to be next to the heroes because they are the targets for danger.
Yeah, and we had just said about 1/3 of that response. It is very detailed and very long, and he seemed to have gone through like all of the boroughs and why you wouldn't want to live there. Now, really I'm sorry. We also have Jasmine and her sister Cody. We chose their
Jasmine,
responses.
our moderator.
Jasmine, our moderator. Sorry, I had like pointed down. I don't know why. That's where she is when she pops up in the three of us there. But I believe Cody had said, I would also like to live near Clint Barton, but like Jazz mentioned, primarily for access to Lucky, the pizza dog. Also, I think Amy chose Jessica Jones and Paul, maybe Daredevil, Doctor Strange. I'm not quite sure on that one. So they had both said that. But Amy, tell the people before we wrap up who you chose.
I chose Benjamin Grimm, the ever-loving blue-eyed thing. I know that Yancey Street is the target for a lot of attacks, but I feel like he's a good Jewish man. He's a very nice guy to live, even though he's got like a very rocky exterior. He's very close with the people that he considers friends. I feel like on a street like Yancey Street, all the neighbors would be pretty tight.
Right.
He's married, so I feel like maybe they would have nice family dinners as well. And I don't know. He just strikes me as a guy who I would really like to be friends with. If you can get past that gruff exterior, Ben Grimm is a loyal friend. So I picked
guy.
Ben Grimm. And Paul, who did you pick?
I chose the night nurse, specifically because I would save a ton on healthcare. I could just go there. She lives in a neutral area because she heals villains and heroes. So there's like a 10-block radius where people are not allowed to fight. And she lives by a lot of bridges. So once the stuff started going bad, I'm the first one out. So night nurse, which I think even probably both of our answers shocked each other. So I'm glad we can still do that.
That was fun. So thank you guys for your responses. Loved all of them. It was great seeing what you thought we would pick and what you guys also personally chose.
Yes.
So we do have another question for you guys for next week. Your holler at the hall question/assignment is, what is the longest running series you've ever read? We want, I think, numerically, as far as it goes, what is the longest time you've stayed on a series reading? Let us know. We'll provide some examples when we post up in the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group this week to get your responses. But like the longest running continuous series without reboots, relaunches, what book is that for you?
Yes.
So if you want to answer that question, you can email us at thecomicshall@sideshow.com, or you can shout it out on the Let Your Geek Sideshow Facebook group or on our social media. Again, we are at The Comics Hall on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So you guys can catch us every Wednesday live at 4 p.m. Pacific on Sideshow's official channels, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And if you are listening to the podcast, that is live every Thursday following the new Comic Book Wednesday. And you can check out our blog again at sideshow.com/geek for all those updates. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, I'm Amy.
And I'm Paul.
And this has been The Comics Hall.